It is my solemn duty to inform you that the video you are about to watch contains opinions, a word which here means something which is very dangerous to express online. If you are sensitive to other people's opinions, you may wish to consider going and hiding in a cave or poking a liar in the face, which concerns a lot less opinions than the video you are about to watch. Okay, here we go. Series of Unfortunate Events Series 2 is finally out. It's been a nice long year waiting, and I've gotten sick of waiting, so the first thing I did the second it came out was binge watch the entire Series 2. I'm a massive fan of the books. I believe that the peak of the books was between book 7 and book 10, so this covers a lot of that. And I'm a massive fan of the first series because of how true it was to the books. So, of course, I was going to watch this immediately, and I thought I'd do a bit of a review of it. It will include some minor spoilers, but nothing that big. I won't spoil anything if you've read the books. The spoilers, if you haven't read the books, are minor. They're small things, the things that aren't even spoilers, they're not like big reveals or anything like that. So, let's get started. So Series 2 covers books 5 through to 9. So that means that it includes their heartbreaking time of proof at prep, the gloomy days they spend at 667 Dark Avenue, the distressing events at VFD, the hopeless period in Hymick Hospital, and finally the dismal period at the Carnival. As well as dealing with the books, we also continue with the things introduced in Series 1, such as the incomplete history of secret organisations, Larry Waiter, Jacqueline, and the Spyglass. Also, similar to the parents in Series 1, where even book readers didn't know what was going on, we have more new mysteries and new characters that are delved into in Series 2. The returning characters are all absolutely stellar, as they were in Series 1. I think that Klaus and Violet and Sunny are all fantastic. I think that Mr. Poe, although not quite to my tastes, is consistent with his Series 1 character. Count Olaf, again, fantastic. His troop is fantastic. They all give on-the-top performances. The newer characters in Series 2 are again very well acted, and for the most part they are very good, very true to their book versions. If it's an original character, they're very interesting. One new character which really stands out is actually Jacques Snicket, who apparently I've been pronouncing wrong for years because I always thought it was said that his name was Jacques Snicket. But now it's pronounced Jacques. And he is a fantastic addition to the show. He gets a lot more to do than he did in the books. He is a really stellar addition. Another fantastic addition is Olivia the Librarian, a character original to the series. She has a lot of interesting things going on around her. She's very much used to advance the plot behind the scenes, which was very essential due to the book sort of limiting how much information the Baudelaires got to this point. I think she is fantastic. I think that she was a really great addition, and she was probably one of my favourite characters this series. However, for all the great new characters introduced in Series 2, there is one or two where I feel they've dropped the ball. Unfortunately, I do feel that a lot of these opinions come from the fact that I have read the books. So it is more that they are much, much worse than they were in the books, in my opinion. The first example of this is the Quagmires. I feel that they are portrayed very much as the Baudelaire's friends, which is kind of the point of them. But they don't really seem to have that much character outside of that. In the books, Isadora is a poet, and Duncan is a journalist, and this is very important to their character. It's very core to their character, and it's used a couple of times to go ahead and be part of the plot. However, in this one, their characters just sort of get washed away. An example of this can be seen in Isadora being a poet. She is a poet in the series, but it's very rarely mentioned. Usually when it's mentioned, it is to correct people for not rhyming what should rhyme. Duncan gets it even worse, with his defining characteristic being a journalist and a researcher. However, that's not even said except once, which is an out of context shoehorned in line. We don't see enough of their characters. As such, when we're supposed to care about them, we don't care about them. It's just that they're the Baudelaire's friends. That's basically all they're there for. Jerome is another character I have a bit of a problem with. Although this one is very much a victim of the fact that they changed a lot in Elevator. They changed a lot of the plot, so a lot of his scenes were rewritten and changed so that there's a much more significant character. But as such, it means that he is mostly ignored and wasted, being asleep through a lot of the time, and not really having that much of a main role in the rest of it. I feel he was very much a victim of that, because he was a relatively interesting character in the books. Another issue I have is Hector. I thought he was a fantastic character in the books. He was very smart, very brave, just had the major character flaw of being very scared of the council, which was very understandable because of their punishments. However, in this series, he just seems like a coward.
No, I'm getting ready to run. We should all start running in a random direction and not stop until we're miles and miles away.
Furthermore, is that although he's managed to do quite a few feats, such as building a self-sustaining mobile home, he is an idiot. He doesn't understand simple things. They have to explain what awesome means to him.
Awesome. That's a word that means inspiring awe.
Overall, I feel like they just wasted a lot with those few characters. They were some of the highlights of the books, yet as the series goes, they're kind of mediocre. They're not ones that I think are that special and stand out that much. Of course, as I say, maybe a part of this is the fact that they're so good in the books, yet drop down in the series, so maybe a non-book reader would enjoy these characters more. Back to a good point now is that VFD is very present in this series. I think that it's a very good thing to have them in and have them as such a big thing. One thing I disliked in the books is how VFD is so small until they are big, whereas they really cover this in the series. However, other than VFD's involvement in the plot, they don't really do much to fix the series anymore. In Series 1, they were fantastic because they covered a lot of the book's flaws, such as why the Baudelaires ended up in Count Olaf's care, and things like that that didn't make sense or weren't logical. But in Series 2, they seem to stop doing that. For example, there is a scene in both the books and the series where the Baudelaires get a chance to get their questions answered. But do they take those answers? No.
Tell us when you're safe.
One issue I personally have is that they put Mr. Poe in a lot more. Admittedly, if you like how Mr. Poe is in the series, then fantastic, you're going to like this. But he ends up at the climax of every single episode. And the problem with that is that a lot of the time it goes up against his character, whereas they had him out the way in the books, which makes sense for how his character is. But they do have him in a lot more scenes here. The series as a whole does get a lot more comedic, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Personally, I don't think it's a problem, it's just a bit of a tonal change, which it's better if you're aware of that about to change. This is especially notable in Elevator. There's a scene where Larry the waiter is trying to keep Olaf at the restaurant they're in, and that becomes a bit cartoony, a bit ridiculous. They also have a bit more sunny cartooniness. I think this is supposed to be to counter the fact that it does get a lot more serious. The plot itself goes down a whole new twist. It is a very in-depth, deep plot. It is very tricky and deals with a lot of hard subjects. So the lives do get a lot more depressing, so I think they add in that bit extra humour to balance it out a bit, which does work the majority of the time. It's just there are times where that does go over the top, and we do get a lot more of the sort of sunny humour that was sort of limited to about once an episode in Series 1, but it's like we've got a whole 5-minute scene of that in Series 2 at one point. Also, the transition between stories does sometimes seem a little bit more clunky and jumpy. It's like it's never explained why they leave prefect prep. You can kind of figure it out, but it doesn't really explain it well. They don't have any sort of scene to actually go into it, which could be a bit of a problem if you don't know what the deal is. They include the Sugar Bowl in the plot, which I have to say, I think if you haven't read the books, that would seem a bit obscure, but if you have read the book, you know that that's going to be very important for later on, and I think it's very good that they included that this early on. It makes it a nice big deal from way before when it is actually the centre of the plot. Just like in Series 1, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Easter eggs to look out for. They've got so many little cues to historical musicians or authors. They've got so much about their past or their future. They set up Series 3 very well. For example, in Series 3 we will learn a lot more about the Hook-Handed Man's past, and they start that, they set that up. They turn around and they say about how the Hook-Handed Man has a sister, and they work with that, and that will become a big thing. And the Sugar Bowl as well. They do that very well, and they still have those Easter eggs that you probably will miss so many times. I know that I was rewatching Series 1 right before this series, it's like the 8th time, and I still saw things that I missed beforehand. And this series is just as rich with Easter eggs. And just like in Series 1, we have Don't Look Away as the theme song again, which is one of my favourite opening things of all time. Make sure you go back and check, because every couple of episodes they change the chunk in the middle as to what it is to explain the story briefly. So definitely go back and rewatch that. Overall, I think that the series is very good. I think that it is a very good follow-on from Series 1. I think that the plot gets a lot better, the stories are a lot better. I think that overall the show is better. The big issues that I have with it is that it is a worse adaptation than Series 1 by a fair bit. Saying that, it is still enjoyable and it is still good, and I highly suggest to watch to anyone that is interested.
Ask any stable person, should I watch, and they will say, look away.
Apparently Neil Patrick Harris knows if I'm stable or not.